first part of John. He asked us. We came to teach us the behavior of both the wicked and the righteous. All right, we went over that. He expects us to learn and understand this behavior. So, why does the Lord want us to understand the difference between these two behaviors? That's my first question. Why does he want us to understand that? What are we going to get out of that? Okay, here you are. You're in John's home. And he's going to talk to you very personally. He's going to give you advice so are you to carry on in your journey to your next destination. And so he's giving you advice, and he's telling you very carefully, as clear as he possibly can do it, all these references so you'll understand the difference between the righteous and the wicked. Why does he want you to know that? Why is that important? He's telling you this personally so you can feel it every way that he possibly can.
I would say there's probably more than one reason, but a couple that come to mind for me is the one, so that we can keep our eyes focused on the light and not be distracted.
Mm-hmm.
And the other is for protection, because there's so many of the Lord's people that are in the midst of wickedness, to be able to distinguish between someone that could bring them harm, maybe? I don't know.
Yes. Now I have 3 reasons. You got it. So we can understand what motivates spiritual forces and identify the end of tolerance for all the members of the alliance. So this behavior is driving the world toward the end of their tolerance of the forces of righteousness. Okay? And so another one is so we can be aware of and understand personal impacts in the lives of others. And the last one is this behavior alerts you definitively that the time of this prophecy is applied to now. Because some of these have never happened before. The only other time that the forces of evil were gathered together in large numbers to fight against the orders of creation was at the time of the flood. So when that tells you that that's what they're doing, that's their behavior, they're fighting against the 4 orders of creation, which are agency, gift of life, marriage, and service to Enoch, said. So the agency part is that they want to dominate all the world. That was part of what he said here. The wicked want to dominate everybody. They're surveil them, want to be a part of your life. The gift of life is diminished because instead of having the ability to raise our children and teach them what we want, they're going to force us to let the world educate and socialize our children. And the sanctity of marriage, you all understand where that's gone out the window completely. And then service to Enoch, said, we're supposed to give service to our overlords and not to him. So that tells you that this prophecy applies to now. And so it should begin to remove your doubt as you struggle and you read this ancient prophecy. Is this applying to other times? Is it just now? And there's as we go through this, as we go through our final destination of Isaiah, each one is going to contribute to that perspective that this prophecy is for now in your life today as we live our days. So that's one of the reasons he wanted to know that. Okay? Now, chapter 1, verse 89 through 91. Would you read that for me?
What is it?
Chapter 1, 89 through 91.
In Melchizedek?
Yes.
Little book. Got it.
Little book.
Chapter 1. 89.
89 through 91.
And because of the acts of Enoch, he said, to set boundaries for evil, the limits of the tolerance of the Irkadeshi and the host of heaven came to the full, then as it will now in this day. And when the Decadarchi began to bring forth the Nephilim, especially meant to attack the four orders of creation, the waters of the flood were ready to sweep over them. And when this limit of tolerance was met, it tipped the scales, and the wicked were destroyed by the waters of the flood. So when the righteous observe these things in the end days, and these same conditions come upon before your faces, that the four orders of creation are in like manner being attacked, you will know that once again the limits of tolerance have come to be met, and the wicked will be destroyed by fire.
Question about their behavior, the reason why he wanted to tell us that personally in his own home, give us that advice. Is there anybody have any additional?
I have, it ties into another point of the homework. One of the things you asked us is what is the sort of criteria and how do you determine who do you move out in heavenly compassion towards? Like, when do you know when to pray for your enemy, love your enemies, pray for them who despitefully use you, bless those who curse you? How do you know? That was one of the questions on the homework. And I think that, just as I've been studying and praying this last week, that part of the reason for this is when you read this, it gives you the clue of who you minister to and who you don't. I don't know if you're ready to go over that now.
That's going to be my third point. So
We can wait to do that.
yeah, save it. All right. So the second point he's asking us in the parable is we're to use the effects of the truth in our lives. And I remember asking you, I don't know if I made this very clear, what precise truth do you think he's talking about? Just not all truth in general. He's talking about using the truth in our lives to move out across the earth in our heavenly compassion. So what did you find? Did anybody find verses that indicate, that show us that specific truth that he's talking about? Okay, if you didn't, it's Little Book 2, 109, verse 109, and verse 111. So somebody read that. Wormy, you read really good. This is 2, 109, and 111.
And looking further on the redemption side, you can see that my finger touched the stone right before the eyes of those in Shabuah. And I have caused them to both hear and see the truth through the stones of the Urim in a way that has been known since the beginning. And you can see, verse 111, you can see that coming from the touch of the stone, righteousness spills out to influence what the man or woman speaks. And those in the dispensation of the covenant speak the truth. And the truth is the means whereby they overcome all things. And the blue color on the lips show this.
This truth, the specific truth, spills out and overflows on the tablet. And so there's truth in the Dead Sea Scrolls because they came by Urim, because it's talking about through the eyes of the Urim. The Book of Mormon came by Urim, and the Books of Remembrance came by Urim. And also, the 7 declarations of the truth in the 7 seals are part of the truth that he's talking about. Specific truth that you will use to, and I'll read it so I say it just right. And my people will be called upon to immediately put to use the effects of the truth in their lives so they can move out across the earth, going forward, consuming all moments of darkness by loving the lost with heavenly compassion and vital service. So what they need, what the lost need, is the hope of where things are going, and that there's a purpose to all the chaos, underlying all the chaos that they're exposed to. All right? Also, that's the first reason of telling you what specific kind of truth. Another one, they want to know that specific kind of truth, not the truth that just any truth everywhere in the world, but the kind of truth that comes from the Urim, so they can know how to be a community and to get together and participate in the alliance. Because there's going to be a lot of people who want to be a community that don't know how, and they're trying to find the truth and are looking for truth in every nook and cranny, but there is specific truth that they need. Also, so that the righteous can achieve purity and spiritual power so they can answer the call. Those three reasons that I have listed are defining the precise kind of truth you need to have in your life in order to minister with that heavenly compassion. Let me say them again. So it's the truth of the ages that have come by Urim. That's what Amy read. It's the seven. It's that are found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Book of Mormon, and the Book of Remembrance. We know those are brought by Urim. There are several things in the Dead Sea Scrolls brought by Urim, and the 7 declarations of the truth and the 7 seals. That's the first one. And the next one is they can know how to be a community together and participate in an alliance. The third one is so the righteous can achieve purity and spiritual power to be able to answer the call. Okay? Now, that's the kind of truth you're looking for in this study. All right? And the next one is loving the lost with heavenly compassion and vital service. Now Sithri's going to explain that. The question is, how can this be expressed to be effective and safe? Who do you know who to pray for and help? The ones who are lost, the ones who are struggling to find their way and claw their way back, remember, to the Lord. How do you know which ones to stay away from and have nothing to do with? And how do you know which ones to reach out to? Have you got something to start with?
Yeah. So I imagine we'll get to, there's lots of verses where the Lord talks about having compassion, and we've read some of those already. I wanted to, in chapter 2 of the little book, starting with verse 69, okay, and going through verse 72, he's talking about the 6th foundation of Shabuah and the wicked abandoning it, rejecting it, how they're treating it. And it says something really interesting. I'm just going to read some of this. It says, they began to hear, in the middle of verse 69, and listen to a different spirit of my own. And the smoke they have chosen will have overcome the function of the Holy Spirit in their lives. I want to skip down to now verse 71. And there's a very small blue spot in the part that's broken off, indicating that some few of the wicked will see and hear the cries for a Savior, and barely manage to turn away from evil, to bear the fruits of repentance, to have that part of the light they're willing to receive. Verse 72, and it becomes the righteous and rich compassion to pray for any such who you come to know in their times of remorse, in their efforts to claw their way back to life and light. And the 6th foundation of Shabuah has been battered and stung with the darkness of lying spirits. Now, I don't know how many people have really studied, but this 6th foundation is unique in several ways. One, it's the only one where it says there's going to be some few of the wicked who are going to escape from this. And it's also the only one where it's not, the foundation of Shabuah isn't demolished or undone or denied. It says it's battered and stung. And I also think that this particular one, I'm going to draw something from the water tablet on here, because it kind of helped give a visual aid of what I'm talking about here. this is off the water tablet. See
Goes
here.
up inside and makes a little circle.
This
It's
goes
opposition
here.
symbol.
Yeah. And there's. And so this part of the water tablet is talking about how you hear the Spirit. The choices of your life and your actions determines which Spirit you're going to hear. And some lead lives that lead them to Ma'in, and they go out and they cross over. And some, when they reject righteousness in their life, they reject virtue in their life, it leads them the wrong way to be empty and void. But remember, it says in chapter 9 in Enoch, there are some who wander in between, lost, alone, and forsaken. And so, as I've been pondering, I decided to make this like the main area of prayer and focus this week in the homework, is that how you know who do you lay a hold of, who do you do all, is the ones, it's not the ones who firmly and completely rejected. It's the ones who that foundation of life is battered and stung, and they're lost and desolate, and they're still like hearing in the distance the voice of Moses to them. It's the Spirit. This is the ones here, the ones who are lost alone, the adversaries opposing, who might still repent and go and find the Lord's voice, who haven't completely rejected it. I don't know if that helped or anyone else had similar things, but that's kind of...
I think as time goes on and the chaos increases, it's going to be easier and easier for us to discern who needs our help. And easier for us to discern who to stay away from and have nothing to do with. Because those who have committed the unpardonable sin, what can you do for them? Those who use Christ to commit their sin. So then, now the fourth one, it says, keep your eyes on the light of Shabuah. And it says, let me read it again to make sure I read it just right. And keep your eyes on the light of Shabuah during your dark places. Your children will be raised up without injury, and they will be prepared to behold the gates of Eden. So my question is, on that part, what does keeping your eyes on the light have to do with your children?
Like the example of Ada, we're in the midst of whatever circumstances that we need to focus on the positive and happy things and the Lord, and then your children aren't injured by the turmoil and things that are going on that could be hard for them, because the parents are focused on the Lord in the midst of whatever is surrounding them.
Let me add to that. The 7 foundations of Shabuah, when you keep your eyes on the light of Shabuah, it means you keep your marriage together. It means you keep seeking your vision. Keep celebrating the Lord's vision. Just go right through the 7 foundations of Shabuah. You continue to do that in the midst of all this chaos. Your kids are feeling your leadership. They're feeling your testimony. They're feeling your faith. They're feeling your confidence. They're feeling the benefits that you get from your relationship with God and the alliance, and that carries them through. So, keeping your eyes on the light isn't just so you don't get lost in the darkness. That's how you keep your family together and you keep your family ready. What if your children are ones that lay hold of the prey and carry away safe? What if they do that when they're 13, 14 years old? Why couldn't they? So that's one of the reasons. All right? Also, by keeping your eyes on the light, and you know, no matter what happens, you know how it's going to turn out, it keeps the surrounding conditions around you less traumatic and less of a threat. Because if you're not feeling threatened, you can't feel... If Christ would have felt threatened when they offered to stone him and he was running for his life, he wouldn't have stopped and healed the blind man who was blind from birth. He wouldn't have laid hold of the prey and carried it away safely if he was worried about his own life. So it's less threatening when you have that kind of faith and you're able to do it. Also, all the protections that you've been given are more effective when you have the support of the Irkodeshi, which the Shabua is, we join in rich affection with the Irkodeshi. So as you affirm constantly, every day in your life, the 7 foundation of Shabua, their protection is all the more impacted to be magnified and applied effectively. It's when you don't, and when you get along fine, and I read stories in Africa where there was turmoil, especially with the terrorists over there, and when there was severe problems, most of the men in this one big village, it was dog eat dog. They took all the food and they didn't care nothing about their wives and children. And all they thought about was their preservation and they abandoned their families. So if you continue to keep the foundations of Shabua, those conditions that caused them, they not normally would have done that. They were all supporting their families before that. I don't know culturally, if they were honoring women and so forth. But the chaos and the strife and the threats got so great that they made a decision they normally wouldn't have made. And so that's another reason to keep your eyes on the light of Shabua. I have those 3 reasons. Okay, now I want to... Is there any comment about that? You want to look for... And I gave you those key scriptures that tell you... There's another one. I didn't have it written down. Let me see if I got it here. I think it's in 240. This is... It's awful that I didn't write it down because to me this is the most central verse in the little book. Grandma, did you write it down?
Somewhere. Where was it?
Where Anoki said cries.
Oh,
It says it more than once. The one you're thinking of, I think, is in chapter 1.
It's in chapter 1.
Yeah.
I've got it written.
Anoki said cries.
But there's also a verse that says that in chapter 2 as well.
Well,
Chapter 3.
Tell me, give me one first. I'm going to read them.
It's marked in Grandma's book. Let's see if I can
Here's
find
my
it.
book. You can probably find it faster than I can.
Because we were just reading it yesterday.
And I wrote it somewhere, but maybe I didn't. Maybe I just wrote it in my book.
I thought of this while I was laying in bed, and we got to find this.
It's at the end of one of the chapters.
Might be the end of 3.
Either one or two.
I think it's in all 3 chapters in one place each, at least.
One we found
All right,
yesterday
no,
was
it's
the end
only-
of one of the chapters.
It only says this
I don't remember which one.
one place.
Verse 41, and Enoki said, "Will cry and look to find his comfort among his lovely ones and mine."
Oh, here it is, 41.
Is that 2 or 1?
41.
2.
Two.
This is
41?
Oh, this is
341.
341.
And the prophecy, this is talking about the bowl or the vial being poured out on the earth. And the prophecy of Enoki said began to be poured out upon the rivers and fountains, which gives life to families, asking them to withdraw their support from the wicked and to remember the righteous. And the wicked multitudes will come to loathe the circumstance of their lives, and the spirit of death will become intermingled with them. And Enoki said, will cry. And he will look to find his comfort among the lovely ones in Ma'im. You will be the only source of comfort in Enoki said. When that, in the conditions ahead. And so you not only pray for the lost and the ones clawing their way back. You comfort Inoki said. How do you comfort Inoki said? What if you see a little kid or a big kid crying because his dog just died? What are you going to do to comfort him? Cry with him? Show him the kind of, that you know what he's feeling? Tell him about the time you lost your dog and how awful it was. Feel sorry for you. So you comfort Inoki said the same way. You grieve with him for the same reason. And you live your life in contrast to what he's grieving over. So, my mother, we had 5 sons in our family. And one of them was a biker and used drugs, and trouble with the law, and couldn't keep a job, couldn't stay married. And my mother cried. And in my soul, I stayed in the South, and I said to my mother, Mother, I'm going to live my life to make you proud of me. So I counteracted that sorrow with how I lived my life for her. And she died here in community at the age of 87. And she was proud of me, clear, and my older brother and my youngest brother and so forth, clear till the time she died. Because we lived our lives in a way to make her happy because of her sorrow over my one brother. So that verse says a lot about our ability to have heavenly compassion, not just for the wicked among us and the unfortunate among us, but for our Father. If you saw your father weeping bitterly over something, would that be alarming to you? Of course. So, how much more alarming when it's the biggest reasons there can be? Okay, he created a world just for somebody to have an opportunity to live their vision, and now it's all into pieces. So, it's really an important verse, and we should write that down. It was 341.
There's another one in 274.
340 what?
274.
274.
There's another place where it doesn't say cry.
Let's read 274. Somebody look that up. I got it. And the righteous and charity, and alas, righteousness and charity are dried up, and they are overshadowed with death. And Enoki said, cries. And I said, who can comfort the great Holy One in these days? My heart is broken for him. Is there any more, you guys? Let's write that one down. That is 274. Did you say there's another one, Sithri?
I think so, but I couldn't find it.
If we find it, we'll add that to it. Okay. Now, I want to close with some information for you to start with. And then I'm going to give you some homework. Okay? Be alert that through all of these 4 prophets, the term nations is used throughout. It is a central theme. They're addressing nations. Okay? And I'll tell you where it can be found. In the little book, write these references down. 1:45 through 47. Chapter 1, 102 through 106. Chapter 1, 113 through 116. Chapter 1, 119 through 120. Also, I should have said 113 through 117, excuse me. And then chapter 3, verse 4 through 5. And chapter 3, verse 15 through 23. And then I'm going to give you some more to study about this idea of nations. This will be, okay, I've got them all. Yes, that's it. Let me tell you, I wrote down here what it's for in case you want to know. But, 1:45 through 47 is about suppressing and destroying Shabuah. 10, chapter 1, 102 through 106 is a Decadarchy covenant with national leaders. 113 through 117 are the lies that are uncovered by the proclamations of the seals that are uncovering the lies of nations. 119 through 120 in chapter 1 is dealing with the limits of tolerance, where they turn from attacking nations to attacking Shabuah. And in 3, 4 through 5, the lies are crafted by the nations that Christ is declaring against. And 15 through 23, the world's nations' sovereignty is under threat. They're no longer able to provide for their people and their safety. So as you study, those are things to read. Now I want to give you your homework. And if I didn't bring it, I'm going to be mad. I did. I'm not mad. Okay, now take some careful notes here, because this is going to be something, a homework task that you're going to have to work at. And you guys can share together, and you can say, oh, I don't understand this part. What did you get? And kind of collaborate so you can do your homework. You don't have to do it all by yourself, especially husband and wife. Isaiah provided his students with an exercise of how to use the prophetic code. You're students, and there isn't any reason why you shouldn't do the same exercise as your students of the prophets like his. And it's found in Isaiah 10, 28 through 32. And he gave them this so they could practice using the prophetic code. Those verses, if you take them literally and you use the named places and the proper words, proper names, they're completely nonsensical. And the only thing that makes any sense out of them is for you to apply the code to them. And the code isn't mysterious, it isn't reading tea leaves or anything. It's very practical, very real, written in black and white. So I want you to do this. I want to tell you how to begin to do it. This code was used throughout all the prophets since Isaiah. It was used extensively in the 16th community under Gokorim I. And he taught the use and practice of this code. All right? And so you can read this in the community rule. I'll tell you where, because I want you to be able to read this. In column 2, lines 11 through 13. This is a very extraordinary statement. This is his instructions to the community to use the prophetic code. All quoted here. Got that now? Column 2, lines 11 through 13. But during all those years, God raised up for himself those called by name, so as to leave a remnant for the face of the world with their seed, And he informed them through those anointed in his Holy Spirit. That's how he's informing them. And who view his truth by the details of their names. So you can find the truth in the details of names. Understand? That's very clear. There's no way to misunderstand that. So it was firmly implanted in the Essene communities, and it found its way into all the Dead Sea Scrolls that was written by the people in Qumran or in Sekakah. And it says this code was used and had the purpose to preserve the Holy Writ from glossators, and so you could pass it down from generation to generation, and it has to be done in conjunction with those anointed by the Holy Spirit. All right? So all the Old Testament is like that, and even John in the book of Revelation, which we're going to use as our final thing after we get done with Isaiah. We're going to go through the book of Revelation. It might be a slog, but I think we're going to do that. Even John the Revelator used the Hebrew code. It became a double code. So you look up the English word that was translated from the Greek. You don't look it up in the Greek, you look it up in Hebrew. So if he says, and all the green grass was burned up, he used the word Greek for grass. But don't look it up in Greek, look it up in Hebrew, the word for grass. Are you following me there? So when we get to that, you'll know. You won't need that until we get to the New Testament. All right? So let me give you some idea of how to proceed with your homework in your exercise of this prophetic code. All of you know, of course, how to use Strong's, and I'm aware a lot of you probably know better than me. And I would suggest that you do it by hand. Because I think from a little I've seen on the computer on Strong's, it takes you in every conceivable direction possible, and it's easy to get mixed up because they're not going to lead you by the Spirit. But your Strong's, your old version of Strong's, will have it very simply stated, and just it'll have in the italics the actual meaning of the word, and it'll have in other kinds of print how it's been used.
And for the people listening online, it's Strong's Exhaustive Concordance of the Bible that when he says Strong's, that's what he's talking about.
And I think it's the earlier editions. I think the later ones have every kind of conceivable way you can take that word based on its use. And they may not have used it correctly.
The concordance is the same way, but some have different dictionaries with it.
I see. Okay.
Usually Vine's dictionary of Hebrew and Greek is the good one.
So I want to give you some examples. And so take notes on this because I'm going to give you some words that are actually in your exercise. The Hebrew word Geba is Strong's 1387. And Gibeah is exactly the same word, 1390. It means a hillock. So they were lodging on a hill. But the meaning of the hill isn't what comes to mind when you read Isaiah. It says, the little hill of Saul has fled. Well, hills can't flee. So hills have some special meaning. It's referring to some government agency, entity, either a national one or a local one. Because hills don't flee, but Saul's government did. So the little hill of Saul fled is signaling you that the word for hill doesn't literally mean a hill you look up. So you find you look up little hill. Okay, now just a minute here. It says, here's another example. Lift up thy voice, O daughters of Gallim, cause it be heard to Laish. Gallim is Strong's 1554, and it means the living water. And Laish is Strong's 3818, comes from 3888. It means to knead bread. So the daughters of Zion are supposed to sing and praise and lift up their voices because the kingdom of Saul is gone. Now we can have the living water, and the living bread be our king. See how it says that? You would never know that by saying, the little hill Saul has fled, lift up your voice, O daughters of Gallim, cause to behead Delish. That would never tell you that, just reading those words. But when you look up the meanings, then you know, and it says, oh, poor Anathoth. Anathoth is strong 60, 68, and 60, 67. It means to pay attention, to witness, to sing, to shout, to testify, and to announce. So, oh, poor Anathoth means all these people who all this time haven't been able to sing and to shout and to witness and to testify and to announce that they're living by the living water because of Saul's government. Now it's fled, so now they can do it. And Anathoth can now sing and witness and be happy. So you see how hidden the meaning is? And Isaiah has meant you to find that, yes.
Is Saul part of the code, or is it actually referring to Saul's government?
Saul is part of the code.
Okay, so we actually will end up looking up Saul also. Okay.
You have all those words to look up. Okay, so that helps you to know how to do that. Now here's another point to help you understand what it meant for the little hill of Saul that fled. 1 Samuel chapter 8, verse 7. And the Lord said unto Samuel, hearken to the voice of the people in all they say unto thee, for they have not rejected thee, but they have rejected me, that I should reign over them. Because the people are asking Samuel to make Saul the king. So, as you study, the Spirit has to lead you in those ways so for you to find that meaning. Now, the whole thing is going to be like that. So I want to give you another tip. Say you look up a word and there's 15 words in Hebrew that were translated to be that same word. Which one did John have or did Isaiah have in mind? Which one did he have in mind out of that list of 15? The only way you can find it is to list every single number that can be that was translated into that word and see what definition makes sense in your statement. When you find it, it won't be obscure. It'll be absolutely crystal clear. When he says all the green grass is burned up, that isn't in your reading. You're going to look through and you're going to find green grass, verdant vegetation, grass comes from this word. There's no definition there. And then it says, also see this number. And when you go read that number, it says boundaries, borderlines, national boundaries. So when it says all the green grass is burned up, it's saying all the national boundaries will burn up. Well, isn't our southern border burned up? Okay, so you can't just pick one that you can make it into making sense. The Spirit has to lead you. What is the context of this? What is he saying? All the green grass will be burned up. And he's talking about that the Lord is judging the nations when he says that. So you just keep looking and chase the numbers. Just keep chasing the numbers. And when you find it, bingo, there it is. The boundaries will be burned up. No other word makes any sense in the context of that, what he's saying. So just be patient when you get, I've had as many as 20 different Hebrew words all translated into the same English word. And you just got to look them all over, write them all down, write all the definitions. Some of them you immediately can cross out. It's not that word. Okay. And then you got 4 or 5 to pick from, and then you start looking and asking the Lord, what is he really trying to say? Then you read it, what's above it, you get the context, and then there it is. It's right in front of you. That's the word Isaiah is trying to convey to you. So those are the hard ones. Then there's one more thing. If you look up every word you can, and there are several of them that are like this, as we go through our study. I don't know if there's any in your exercise or not. And you're into a dead end. Every time you look up the word, it tells you something. There's no definition. It just says like lewd, like lud, descendant of Shem. That's it. Doesn't say anything more. So you go to Benner's book of Paleo Hebrew, and you look up, you find the Hebrew letter for each of the letter for the word Lud. You look up the meaning of each letter. Each letter will have a meaning. And there will have a meaning, and starting on page 50, there is, in Benner's book, there's an explanation of how he gets his meaning. And then on page 69, there's actually a dictionary telling you the meaning of each letter. So you can, if the meaning of each letter on the 69 one doesn't work, go back and search a little bit on the page, the other page, what I told you about.
50. Yeah.
What?
50.
50, and you'll find a little bit of extra information that will might signal you in. So what you do, say you have 4 letters in a word, and you have four different meanings of each letter. They don't have to be in the same order that they come in to make the word, but because English to Hebrew isn't the same in the same order, the thought pattern isn't the same. They can be in any order, but you can make a sentence out of those 4 meanings of those letters. That sentence will tell you the definition of love. When the book didn't tell you the definition, those letters will tell you the definition. So whenever you run into your Strong's absolutely does not give you a definition for the word, go to Benner's and find the meaning of each letter, make a sentence, and you can make a sentence, and sometimes it's very simple. Sometimes it's just this letter and this letter and this letter and this letter. It forms a complete sentence. Sometimes the Spirit has to lead you how to state that sentence in an understandable way in English. Okay, so...
And the letters themselves have ranging meanings too, so you have to figure out how does it apply in this situation.
Yes.
Have you actually done the word Lud? The name?
Well, I have it in my notes here. Let me show you. Let me see if Japheth is one of those. Make sure I got this.
We have not done Lud yet.
Oh, I know. Now, just a minute. I was thinking. I've got an actual one to show you if I... No, I don't know if I can find it. There's not a lot like that, but there's... When you find them, they drive you crazy.
There's tons in Ezekiel.
There's a lot in Ezekiel.
Tubal.
Okay, well, Tubal is one, I'm pretty sure. I'm trying to look and see where I got the Benner's book stuff here, but I can't find it. Anyway,
I just thought
you'll find
If
them.
you showed what that looked like, people who aren't familiar with that would know exactly what you're talking about.
I don't think you need it for Isaiah 10 section.
No.
I don't think you need it in Isaiah 10. No, so we'll be finding that.
So when we get to Ezekiel 38, yep.
Okay, well, what I want you to do is I want you to translate Isaiah 10, 28 through 32 in a paragraph using all the definitions and actually make it a paragraph that makes sense, that goes, that actually says something that is intelligent. Translate it, and bear in mind that no 2 translations that anybody does are exactly the same. I mean, you can read it, all the different translations of Dead Sea Scrolls, they're hardly ever just exactly the same. Every guy has a little bit different idea about what it's saying. So don't get frustrated if somebody else translated a little bit different than you. But if your thing didn't make any sense, then go ahead and get frustrated.
Always bribe someone who has it with friends.
Okay. Well, we're ready then for our close.
From the book of remembrance of Moses. And Moses said, I do not even know what they will call your name. Who should I tell the spokesman it was that sent me? And the Lord said, tell him that the great I am loving kindness has sent you. for they know me by that name. And Moses wept, and he said, The children of Israel will not hearken unto my words, for I am nothing before all men. And the Lord drew near, and he said, Arise, my son, and pray whatsoever you will, and it shall be done according to your word. And all the Irkadeshi will obey you. Rivers will obey you. The clouds and the wind will obey you. The mountains will heed your words. And when the house of Israel shall behold all these things, surely they will give heed unto your words. For you are called and have been ordained after the order of Melchizedek, and I am your God. And this day know that I will go before you. This day is the beginning of the time of decision for the house of Israel.